Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. It's the Wednesday, February 11th, 2026 episode of the Marco Dure Show. Thank you for tuning in to hear today's groundbreaking news right here in America and across the board, where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Let's begin the best hour of radio, informative, uncensored, unapologetic, and ready to go. I want to start today's program talking about the Pentagon's plan to test anti-drone lasers led to an El Paso airspace closure this morning early. And for those of you that don't know, El Paso is right on the border with Mexico. And the Trump administration told The Hill that the temporary closure, which routed flights for more than 7 hours at El Paso International and the Dona Ana County International Jetport, was prompted by Mexican cartel drones breaching U.S. airspace. Now, this is something that has happened previously, though we've never seen any type of closures like this, probably since 9/11. So I thought this was a little bit peculiar for today. This would happen. Obviously, we need to control our airspace. But both CBS and Politico reported that the Defense Department and the FAA had disagreements over the former's plans, use of anti-drone technology near Fort Bliss. So what resulted really from this? We saw the anti-drone technology, which includes high-energy lasers, which were deployed earlier this week to shoot down a party balloon initially believed to be a foreign drone, according to CBS. Our airspace now being more threatened by foreign entities? Is that what we're seeing right now? One of the things I kept hearing, though, this morning that I thought was fairly interesting as a result of all this, what I heard was, of course, that, well, this is Mexico. We know that Hezbollah is inside Mexico. They have some sort of influence. So do the Chinese, too, by the way, just so we understand that. But that's the thing I heard this morning, Hezbollah. And who funds Hezbollah? Well, of course, Iran does. Who are we in negotiations with? Iran. So there's no shortage of rhetoric that is anti-Iranian at this point. I just thought this was fairly interesting that this is taking place right when Netanyahu is set to meet with President Donald Trump. And, you know, we need to obviously make sure that our airspace is safe and secure, but I felt that this was something that was just right off the cuff, a little bit odd. We saw that the Chinese space balloon or whatever that was that traversed the entire United States wasn't even taken down until it returned over the ocean again. I think east of South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. But obviously, thankfully, it seems like nothing terrible happened, nothing that we know of as of late. Duffy wrote on X, just to conclude this, that the FAA and the Defense Department actively and swiftly addressed a cartel drone incursion. So it seems like it was neutralized, and there was no danger to any commercial travel in the region or to any American civilians. The restrictions have been lifted, and normal flights are now resuming. So what could have been a 10-day stand down and closure of these airports, it seems like the airspace is now opened up, and again, air traffic has resumed. So is it all bluster? Is it just to, again, pin something else on Iran? I don't know. But again, I'm glad that everything is fine. So the big thing today, of course, is that Netanyahu is meeting with President Trump. He landed early this morning, late yesterday evening, I guess, if you want to call it that way. But the talks, of course, are going to be about Iran, number one. And, of course, what's taking place inside the Gaza Strip. That's number two. Very important topics. We have this being the first meeting of this year, the seventh overall between Trump and Netanyahu. And those of you that will recall, when Netanyahu came to Mar-a-Lago on December, I believe, 28th, if I'm not mistaken, what took place almost right thereafter? Well, we saw obviously the devaluing of the Iranian rial. We know that Mossad, we know that MI6 Our CIA were very much involved in all of that to take down the economy. And from there on out, we saw the start of the protest. Now, the beginning of the protest had to do with the economic woes of the Iranian people, which was then hijacked by, of course, the factions that were at the behest of Mossad, MI6, and CIA alike. Now, what's important to understand here, though, is that every time Netanyahu seems to be meeting with President Trump, something takes place soon thereafter. So I'm sure he's going to try to coax President Trump into going into Iran and attacking along with Israel. I'm sure that's going to happen, and that will be discussed. Now, whether they tell us that, I'm sure they will not. But that's going to be one of the big topics of discussion. Well, how is Trump going to handle Iran? Trump should know that this is not going to be a win-win situation for him. It'll probably tank Republicans in the midterms. It'll probably tank the global economies of Europe and Asia alike. I have no, obviously, contrary belief to the otherwise that would happen. This is going to be a big problem. A very big problem. One of the things, though, that I thought was very interesting is that Netanyahu announced his plan for Israel to taper off its reliance on American military aid over the next decade. Now, this is, again, strange to me because we give them $3.8 billion every single year to fund their military. That's right out of the taxpayer fund. But he wants to phase out billions in U.S. military aid and let Israel buy its own weapons like any other consumer. Where are they going to get this money from? Does anybody know? I mean, they don't really produce anything inside Israel. They produce, surveillance technology, tourism. That's really it. I mean, they don't have any natural resources in the region. I mean, for the first time, Venezuela oil is going to be reaching Israel as of late. That's what we're hearing coming out of the economy. So we're seeing the military hawks right on board with what's taking place, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, the General Jack Keynes. I'm sure you've heard all this. But the American military aid to Israel has really become controversial for the Democrats. So I think Netanyahu has the reality of this, that he's got to wean himself up at some point. I would imagine the Trump administration will continue to fund them throughout the rest of his tenure, though. And one of the things, too, that I found fairly interesting, and this was Rubio this morning, this was posted on social media, that, he was questioned about whether or not he would approve a ceasefire. And this was his response. Take a listen.
Will you call for ceasefire?
No, I'm not. On the contrary. Are you filming it? I want you guys to get this. I want them to destroy every element of Hamas they can get their hands on. These people are vicious animals who did horrifying crimes. And I hope you guys post that.
And what about the civilians that are being killed every day?
Hamas should stop hiding behind civilians, putting civilians in the way. Hamas knew that this was going to lead to this. So Hamas has stopped building their military installations underneath hospitals.
So you don't care that 15,000 have died? You don't care about the babies that are being killed every day?
Horrifying. I think it's terrible, and I think Hamas is 100% to blame. That's what I think. Make sure you post that, please.
So he thinks it's Hamas to blame, not Israel, that is supposed to be out of the Gaza Strip right now, that continues to shell, continues to perform airstrikes on the Palestinian people. 20 to 30 people Palestinians are killed every single day. Rubio has no problem with that. Not an issue at all. Because, of course, they're using Palestinians as human shields. What does that mean anyways? It's an incoming missile. You're going to hide behind another Palestinian to save yourself? The missiles only reach a certain depth of where they're going, so they still bomb it anyways? I mean, this is the reality behind what we're hearing from Rubio, our Secretary of State, our National Security Advisor. This is what he's selling to the American people? Who buys this other than nobody? It simply just does not work that way, and anyone that believes that is ridiculous. You have 83% of Gaza lying in ruins. Over 80% of the people killed have been Palestinians, not Hamas, by the way. So this whole thing is rhetoric, it's talking points, and it's no basis in reality. Just, again, so we understand this. One of the things, too, that I thought was really interesting, we're talking about what's taking place inside Iran. We're seeing the tensions there beginning to rise. This is how the Daily Star. It says, Trump is now going to be sending 200 U.S. soldiers to fight inside Nigeria now, after accusing the government of not doing what it should to keep Christians safe inside the country. So look at how we're wearing out our resources. In order to actually achieve regime change, which is exactly what we want to do inside Iran, okay, this has nothing to do with the protesters, regardless of what you hear. Now he's going to start sending troops to Nigeria to, I guess, advise Nigerian forces against Islamist militants. How are we going to start doing this? Are we going to start spending money now inside of Africa? Now, we all want Christians to be safe around the world. We want all free people to be safe around the world. We do. But what we're doing is we're just wearing ourselves thin, it seems. Does it seem that way to you? In order to be successful, if we were actually going to be performing regime change inside Iran, not only would we need constant airstrikes for a long period of time, we also need about a million boots on the ground. Because that will become a much greater regional war. Because you're going to see Yemen get involved in it, 100%. You'll see Yemen get involved. And we couldn't even defeat the Houthi rebels. And we had more Navy inside the Red Sea when we were performing the airstrikes on Yemen than we do, of course, in the Arabian Sea right now, just outside of the Persian Gulf. How do we think that a country of 93 million people with a much more advanced military weaponry is going to fall to us in that, but we couldn't even defeat the Houthi rebels inside Yemen? Someone make sense of that to me. I'd like to hear that. But it seems like we're branching out. We're talking about putting more resources in Venezuela. We'll talk about that momentarily. But it just seems that Trump is really trying to thin things out with our military, it seems. Now, it says U.S. and Nigerian officials say that the troops will back up a handful of U.S. military personnel already inside Nigeria, and in the hopes of helping local forces use intelligence to seek out targets for military strikes. How much money are we going to be spending on this now? It's going to be a lot of money. When we were in the 12-day war, just to compare it, in the 12-day war with Israel and Iran, it was costing us about $245 million just on anti-defense ballistic missiles every single day of that 12-day war. That's a lot of money. It's not anything cheap, okay? So we need to understand all this. This is going to be a very costly situation, and it will be an all-out war. That's the way it's going to be. So this is no good. By the way, we're also seeing oil prices rise to about 1% on Wednesday. And this is going to be, again, very, very bad for the potential buyers and suppliers in America. We're already seeing the price of Brent crude go up. It was up $1.13 or 1.64% to about, well, we're seeing it at about $69.93 a barrel. That's what we're seeing right now. WTI crude is roughly up by $1.15 or 1.8%. And these ongoing tensions inside the Middle East are really going to be bringing up the prices. We're going to start seeing that in the side of the United States. We're already seeing it up about more than 1% already. The war hasn't even started yet. So this is going to be something that is ongoing. It's not going to end. And as these tensions increase, as this happens more and more, President Trump said on Tuesday that he was considering sending a second aircraft now inside the Middle East, even as Washington and Tehran are preparing for more negotiations. So this rhetoric that he's got, it's not going to be something that is beneficial to the United States. It's simply not. Once that takes place, once this war goes on, and it will go on, trust me, we're seeing everything escalate to the proper means for a war. You are going to start seeing that price of oil skyrocket. Number one, because you're going to see 25% of the global oil supply shut down. That is supply and demand. That's the way it is. You have less supply, less daily supply now coming out of that region for God knows how long they shut it down for, along with destroying oil refineries inside all areas of the Middle East, oil fields all throughout the Middle East, destroying Israel too, by the way. The talks of the removal of their nuclear program, which again they claim they are not doing, by the way. We'll get into that momentarily. And of course, the removal of any type of ballistic missile program they have. They want to get rid of all their ballistic missiles. Now, this again, the Iranians are not going to go with. It's just simply not going to work. They will not go for that. Now, they talked about reducing the level of enrichment, but this is what President Trump had to say regarding Iran now. Let's take a listen to this. This is shocking to me that he speaks about these countries when what we did was a complete 180 on our talks with them. Take a listen. He sat down with Larry Kudlow just yesterday. This is what he had to say.
Do you think a deal with Iran with this current regime would ever really stick?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know one thing. They want to make a deal. They wouldn't talk to anybody else, but they're talking to me. But, you know, it's a good question. A lot of people say no. And I would say that I'd rather make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. No nuclear weapons, no missiles, no this, no that, all the different things that you want. But some people worry that they've been very dishonest with us over the years, right? Very dishonest. Obama and Biden, what they did in terms of creating a monster with Iran was terrible. That Iran nuclear deal was one of the dumbest deals I've ever seen.
But he took us out of that, and he didn't replace it with anything. So there's a big deal with this now, because now we have nothing really stopping anything from the Iranians from doing whatever they want. Now, of course, we had the negotiations put into effect, but then that went upside because we allowed Israel to, again, attack on it. We gave them the green light to go and do that. This is all cognizant of the Iranians. And by the way, they understand that the protests were, and the riots were not anything that was organic at all. None of it was. Nothing at all was organic with that. As a result of that, they understand what's going on. So let's take a listen to that right now. Let's listen to Arachi speaking with, I believe it's Rick Sanchez, talking about what's taking place with it. Let's listen to that.
We still do not have full trust on Americans. Yeah. And I think we have every right not having trust. Because the last time we negotiated, last June, we were in the middle of negotiations when they decided to attack us. And that was a very, very bad experience for us. And
So what's it going to take to get you to the level of trust that you think is necessary?
Well, we need to make sure that scenario is not repeated.
So he wants to make sure that scenario is not repeated. Obviously, one can understand they were in talks last time. They were going to give the United States everything they wanted. They were going to enrich to no greater than 3.5% of enriched uranium. That would have been huge. Obviously, they needed about 90% to successfully make nuclear weapons. They were going to allow the United States to come in, verify, to monitor their use of their nuclear sites as well. That went away too. So this is all very, very important stuff that we could have had last June, but the United States threw away that opportunity. Iranians are now very, very aware of this. So we need to be, again, cognizant of what really happened. We threw that opportunity away. The Iranians understand this. They said, we'll come meet you at the table. We don't want nuclear weapons. Anytime we've been inspected by the IAEA, nothing has happened, right? They've all agreed that we're not building a nuclear weapon, 100%. And as a result of it, they've continued to say that they're not going to do this. They don't want this. So here's Arachi again. He's speaking again with Rick Sanchez. This was him talking about the possibility of nuclear technology inside Iran. Let's listen to this.
The peaceful nature of the enrichment is important.
Yes.
So below 5% is needed for power reactors. In some special cases, like TRR, there is a need for 20% enrichment. So come to a better deal than Obama's deal or JCPOA. I think I have been in this business of nuclear negotiations in the past 20 years. So I know that it is achievable. We can come to a better deal than before, and we are able to ensure that there is no nuclear weapon. This is the main concern of those who have concern. Nuclear weapons. No nuclear weapon, we can guarantee.
So he's saying the right thing here. He's saying we don't have nuclear weapons. Anytime you've inspected us, there's no nuclear weapons. Even the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has said the exact same thing. Anytime we've inspected them, they have no nuclear technology or capability. They've said this. They have a fatwa out there saying the exact same thing. Why Trump will not make a deal and say, listen, we'll allow you to enrich, of course, we can make that agreement. But what he's saying is that, 5% enrichment is for regular purposes. Nuclear reactors, medical purposes, all this is normal for any developed country. And we have many that don't have nuclear technology that do this. Now, one of the things that's important we need to understand as well, moving on from this, is that the economy. We know that the economy will be in shambles if this war takes place. And again, I do believe this will take place eventually. What we saw from just last year, this is out of ABC News, that the Trump tariffs cost American households $1,000 last year alone. This is through the Tax Foundation. And they believe it's going to be even higher in 2026. They believe it's going to go up to about $1,300 per household, assuming that the existing tariffs stay in place. How is this going to be good for the economy? How is this going to be good for anybody? That you're spending $1,300 more just on your household. And as a result of that, you're seeing possibly new tariffs come into place. Now you're going to see an economy in shambles. This is all very, very detrimental. Now, they go on to say, for example, that the largest U.S. tax increase as a percentage of GDP has existed in the tariffs since 1993. But here's the problem. You're seeing the CPI go up. You're seeing inflation go up. All these things are going up at the same time. So while the economy is obviously bringing in a certain number of goods, and the government is collecting some $264 billion off the tariff, you have to understand, you are making up that difference. Americans don't want that. We want prices to go down. Never forget, a tariff is a tax. Every single time, it is a tax on you, the consumer, in some way or another. So, for example, in the article, it says the price of coffee rose by 33.6%. Ground beef, we talked about that yesterday. We want Argentina to bring in $800 million worth of beef into the United States. But ground beef in America has gone up by 19.3%. Lettuce, 16.8%. Orange juice, 12.4%. This is all according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. These are all things that have fluctuated with the tariffs in 2025. Trump has got to bring them down. Now, if we screw up trade, if we screw up global economies based on this war with Iran, that doesn't need to take place, by the way, because Iran does not pose any type of national security risk to the United States, you're going to see prices, even though, for example, it may not directly affect the United States, right? We can be energy independent because we're producing 19.3 million barrels of oil per day here in the United States. It will come back to the United States, though, because it's going to cost these other economies even more to get those goods there, if they can even do it at all. If they can even do it at all. And by the way, Bloomberg has a great article that says U.S. now will allow oilfield contractors to go to work inside Venezuela. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, we're going to allow contractors to go inside Venezuela. Trump wants them to invest inside the country. We know that they have a plethora of oil reserves, the largest in the world, of this crude oil. And Trump, as a result now, because the government is playing ball, he will now reduce and relax these sanctions on Venezuela. Now, what does that mean, though, exactly? Unless we actually invest and spend a lot of money, for example, we've got Darren Woods of ExxonMobil, the CEO, stating that it's uninvestable. A brand new word to describe the awful situation economically inside getting this oil out of the ground. Now, I'm told this oil is so thick inside Venezuela that it's like peanut butter almost. You've really got to have the right technology, the right infrastructure to get this out of the ground. It's not like, you see in the old movies where they, strike oil and it just shoots up into the, sky. That's not the same kind of oil. It's very, very different. It's very thick. It's very heavy. It has to go through a desulfurization process just to even get it going. So we need roughly $183 billion needed just for the regular type of equipment, the infrastructure, and the reliable fiscal regime in place to allow this to even happen. And even then, it's going to take about 15, 16 years to get us producing 3 million barrels of oil per day inside Venezuela. It's just not economically feasible. And that's if people want to take on that venture. Do you really want to spend that much money and then wait that long just to get 3 million barrels of oil? We ourselves are producing 19.4 million in the United States. We're the number one oil producer in the world. And you want to destroy what's taking place out of the oil-rich countries like Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia? You want to start destroying that? Because that's what's going to happen as a result of shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. The price of oil is going to skyrocket. So we've really got to understand what's taking place here. Despite having these great deposits, taking out this oil, by the way, just to reiterate, you need to spend $20 a barrel on what you take out of the ground, invested before it can even be shipped. And then it's going to come through oil taker. That means it's going to cost more money because it's not coming through a pipeline. Then it's got to go to a refinery in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, one of these, in the Gulf of America for more further refining. And it's going to take even more because, again, if it's thickness, this heavy, thick crude oil, right? It's not like the crude oil that comes out of Alberta, Canada. It's much, much thicker. It's got to go through much more processing before it can even become, brought to the stores and be used. So there's this whole process that has to take place, and it's not lucrative. It's not lucrative, but the U.S. government now still wants to issue a general license to allow all these oil field service companies to go to work inside Venezuela. They want to try to make this work. And they want to try to rebuild the nation's crude infrastructure. It's going to take a long, long time. It'll be many, many years after President Trump leaves office. So before we start to see any profits from this is going to take a long time. So we've got to understand this. And by the way, there will be people that get rich off this investment. Usually the people that are probably buying this machinery and this infrastructure that goes into it. But it is going to take many, many, many years before we start to see this become profitable to extract this crude oil in Venezuela. So I thought that was pretty interesting to hear that that's what's taking place. And by the way, we knew this. We knew it had nothing to do with the protests there or the people of Venezuela. It really had nothing to do with the government because now the government is playing ball with the United States. We're seeing Delcy Rodriguez coming to say, okay, we will trade with you. And by the way, they've been trading with us. They were trading with us in 2025. So that's not anything out of the ordinary. But we wanted to control the means of that production. For some reason, Trump thought this was worthwhile. And by the way, we're not seeing or hearing anything about Maduro's trial, are we? Nothing. What's going on with that? Nothing about the flow of drugs. We still are seeing the Defense Department striking some ships still, although that's been toned down quite a bit. But this is the end result of this. It's all about the oil in Venezuela. It has nothing to do with the people. It had nothing to do with drug boats, so-called. What do you think? That operation is going to get shut down because the president is out of the picture? Same exact government still in place. Same exact people inside their cabinets are still in place. Same exact military. We think the drugs are not going to go through Venezuela anymore? It's ridiculous. It really is in itself ridiculous to even suggest this. So that's taking place. So what next? What next in the United States could possibly go wrong as a result of all this? Look what's happening in LA. So not only are you going to have $1,300, excuse me. I hope it's not 1,300%. $1,300 more of, obviously, goods inside the United States spent by the average family. Okay. Now we're going to have, in LA, we've got 2 LA County supervisors, Hilda Solis and Holly Mitchell, now are pushing a half-cent sales tax that they would like to see in place for the looming federal health care funding cuts that are threatened by Medi-Cal services. So you've got the same exact group. You've got the SEIU coming out. They want to push a 5% wealth tax on all billionaires, which again should be absolutely illegal, by the way. But here's the thing. Because the tax would apply to retail sales, restaurant purchases, so anytime you go out now, you're going to have this half-cent sales tax now put on you. And it's quickly being tarnished by the opponents of this because, again, it's going to be rising prices on families regardless of whether or not they are even using this healthcare service. So they're saying, why are we being burdened with this? So the gals on the LA County of board of supervisors. I call it the board of stupid advisors for many reasons, as you can imagine. People are saying, and rightfully so, why are less affluent LA County residents being required to pay for more clothing, higher prices for that, school supplies, motor vehicles, restaurant purchases, all burdened by a sales tax that is already super high. All throughout LA County, depending on which city you're in, you're going to have combined sales tax rates above 10% in many cities across LA. Some of the highest sales tax in the country come out of California. But we've got Solis and Mitchell are now bringing this proposal now before the Board of Supervisors it took place yesterday, but they want to put it on this ballot for a June 2nd primary election that's coming up. So what Mitchell told Cal Matters, she says, I do not take lightly asking fellow residents to consider imposing a 0.5% retail tax. That's what it's being sold as. So you're going to pay 0.5% more on all your goods here? Now, this option is on the table because what's at stake, is what she says, are safety net services unraveling for millions of residents. Why is that unraveling? Is it because you already have such a high cost of living inside the nation? You have people fleeing Hollywood, obviously the Bay Area. All these big billionaires are packing up and leaving. And they're being stuck with this massive amount of debt that they can't even put forth for the Medicare, for Medi-Cal inside the state. So they always got to try to find some people to do their bidding for them. And this comes in the place of yet another tax on the average Californian, in this case, inside Los Angeles. So if this 5% wealth tax dies out, which it probably will, I'm guessing it will, you're going to be bleeding more GDP inside the state, up to $1 trillion. You're seeing groups like the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association already, trying to go out and protect Californians from these massive tax hikes. And they're saying that the new measure would also keep taxes raised for 5 years, which supporters, including unions, healthcare advocates, say would raise $1 billion. Okay, raise $1 billion. For who, though? Certainly not all the people paying are going to be getting any of the benefits from it. How could you have a tax in place where you're having people pay more out of their pockets and getting nothing in return for it? Now, what Mitchell is claiming, this proposed tax would remain until October 1st, 2031. And then it would be subject to public oversight and audits. Yeah, right. Nobody's going to be looking into that. Nobody's going to be looking at that. $1 billion every year, they'll look the other way for that. And by the way, how much can you really get out of $1 billion every single year for people in healthcare in California? Not very much, folks. Not very much. So you got the SEIU behind this, of course. You got various, obviously, medical associations behind this, of course. But are you really going to get the taxpayer behind this? That's the thing about this. You need the taxpayer behind this, too. So if the board places this on the ballot, it's a government-proposed special tax requiring at least a 2/3 supermajority. So you need roughly 66.7% to pass this. If they go the route of a citizen-led initiative, though, this is what they might do. They can take advantage of what's called the Upland loophole and only require a 50% plus one majority vote to get that. So we'll see what's up their sleeves if they decide to do this. But these loopholes, these are all in place so they can pass the legislation they'd like. And this is how they're going to try to gain more money. The state's bleeding money, so how are they going to get more money? They got to find different ways to tax you. It's nothing new. But this is what they're doing inside LA County. It's really disgusting to see this taking place. So keep your eye on that if you're in California. This article's in the California Post. Take a look at it. And it's they will tax you any which way they can inside California. Any which way they can. Let's take a look at what Russia's claiming right now, too. We've talked about what's taking place inside, obviously, the United States with Iran. Netanyahu and Trump are carving up what they would like to do inside Iran together, I'm sure. I have no doubts about it. Russia's coming to the table as the adult in the room, and they would like to keep a moratorium between the United States and them about this New START treaty that expired just last Thursday. And what they said they would like to do, they would like to continue following the nuclear arms limitations for another year extended. So right now we have no restrictions on the two largest atomic arsenals in the world for the first time in more than 50 years. Vladimir Putin has come out and said that he would like to follow the treaty for another year. President Trump was presented with this. He said that sounds like a great idea, that he does nothing about it. Trump is arguing now that he wants China to be a part of this new pact. Now, China has outright rejected this, joining this nuclear arms treaty. I still don't think that should limit President Trump to signing this with Russia. I really don't. We should try to seek good relations with Russia. We really should. You got the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, telling the Russian parliament's lower house on Wednesday that even though the United States has not responded to Putin's offer, Russia will respect New START's limits for as long as the U.S. observes them as well. So in other words, once they see that the United States is abandoning it, upping their technology, obviously increasing their capability, their numbers, or what have you, then Russia will go from there. And they've already said, we've got a lot of things up our sleeves too, by the way. So we've got to understand that we're going to be entering a new arms race in the very, very near future if we abandon this New START treaty. This is one of the last binding agreements between the United States and Russia that will prevent this from going into an all-out arms race. And it's not going to be beneficial for us or Russia if this should happen. He goes on to say, we will closely monitor how things are actually unfolding. If our American colleagues' intention to maintain some kind of cooperation on this is confirmed, we will actively seek on a new agreement and consider the issues that have remained outside the strategic stability agreements. Okay, so Russia is seeking peace. They're seeking an agreement. They're seeking a treaty, which again is the law of the land inside the United States, is saying, look, we'll do this. We'll come together with you. And we will not foment our weaponry. Why should this be something controversial right now? All the weapons between the United States and Russia right now can destroy the entire planet, folks. Just so we're clear, why do we need more of this? Bragging rights? Leverage for trade agreements? I don't know. But we don't need this. We simply don't. On a nuclear level, we match pretty much the entire world. We do. Now, on ballistic missiles, we don't. Russia's arsenal is far more advanced than ours in many respects. But why would we want to push ourselves to this limit? Because what Russia's going to be thinking as a result of this, if the United States is developing new arsenals, new technology, they could use that against Russia. That means Russia now has got to invest heavily inside this arsenal of theirs. It's not going to lead to anything positive. It's not going to lead to better negotiations. Trump should really, really consider this right now. And instead, he simply is ignoring it. Someone inside the administration, inside the cabinet, should sit President Trump. The only one I think that would do this is probably a Tulsi Gabbard. I can't see Rubio. Certainly not Hegseth at all. Certainly not the chief of staff, too, Susie Wiles. None of them are going to sit President Trump down and say, listen, let's keep these relations for at least another year. Then we can renegotiate. Maybe in the meantime, then we can get China in. Then maybe we get the UK in. Maybe we can get France in there, too. If we can start doing this, then we can start building this coalition, and we don't have to worry about this. But instead, we're saying, you know what? The safeguards are off. Everything's done. Let's just do whatever we want with these nuclear weapons. Does that mean we can also share these weapons with other countries that we want? Share this technology too? I don't know. Maybe Russia would, God forbid, give some to Iran right now. Then Iran has nuclear weapons. You see how things can spiral out of control with this. Again, I can only pray that President Trump goes through with this, that he sees the significance, of course, that this is not trivial, that they should be taken seriously, and of course that we should, obviously, for the sake of America and the world, that we go through with this and keep this agreement in place. Everything that he's done, though, getting us out of the INF in 2019, again, is pushing us further and further into a new arms race, and that's nothing beneficial for anybody in the world. You know, folks, we talked about last week, of course, what was taking place with ICE. And Eric Swalwell, who somehow is still inside our Congress, this is out of the Gateway Pundit, by the way. Again, despite sharing intel with a Chinese spy, this is Eric Swalwell. This is his claim to fame, of course. The dunce that he is. Regardless of all this, you know, regardless of his primary residence being inside D.C. and, of course, not in California, he's still able to run for Congress. No one does a damn thing about it. He's now vying to be the future governor of California. That in and of itself would be detrimental to all Californians. If you thought Gavin Newsom was bad, Eric Swalwell would be even worse. Just wanted to say that to you. But right now he's got a lawsuit out, and this is by filmmaker Joel Gilbert. He's actually suggesting that the gas man himself, Eric Swalwell, doesn't even live in the state of California, which is, again, is a breach of anything for the Secretary of State and the means to run in these elections. But that he actually lives in a $1.2 million mansion inside D.C. with his family. Now, Swalwell's weak claim is that he uses his campaign office address inside Sacramento on just legal documents due to safety concerns because he gets death threats. But he maintains that he still resides in California, particularly inside Livermore, California. Let's take these claims, though, at face value. I'm in a giving mood right now. Let's do that. Let's give Swalwell the benefit of the doubt that he's telling the truth for once, and that he, on a $174,000 salary, can afford a mansion in D.C. for $1.2 million, but that he also has a home inside Livermore, California, east of the Bay Area. I'm sure it's very, very pricey, and as you'll see in a moment, it is. The average price of a home inside Livermore is $1.2 million. Now, that's an average home. We know that he's got a 4-story Victorian bungalow, 3,000 square feet, 2 residencies on the property, totaling 6 bedrooms, 5.5 baths, a mile away from the Capitol building. He and his wife and his 3 kids reside there. Okay, that makes sense, right? He's out there most of the time. He must have a home for them, provide for them, but he's also got a home back in California. So are we to believe, that he's got at the low sum, a $1.2 million house in California and a $1.2 million home inside D.C. on a salary of $174,000 a year? He's maintaining both properties. He's paying property tax, insurance, maintenance on the houses. Now, again, if you believe that, folks, I got some really cheap beachfront property for you out in Bakersfield, California for very, very cheap. It's a hell of a deal. You're never going to get a better deal than that. I digress, though. Now, per the New York Post, the California Secretary of State, Shirley Weber, is looking into this alleged fraud by Swalwell. His dunce campaign manager, or consultant rather, Kate Mader, says that the practice, of using your campaign office address is a legal and common practice in California politics. Well, I have no doubt behind that at all. Most of them probably don't even live in California anymore. Now, she concluded by trying to convince we the people by saying that Swalwell has almost 2 million airline mileage accumulations since being elected to office. Okay, right, well, let's take this again at face value. 13 years traveling back and forth to and from California, that's 2,400 miles one way. If we were to space that all out, that's 153,000 miles every single year, roughly. That's 5 to 6 times a month. He's going to and from California. Okay? So he's back and forth in California 3 times a month for 13 years straight? Give me a break here, folks. By the way, Schiff the con man, too. He's got the same grift going on, too, except he lives in Maryland in another lavish house. Doesn't even live in California anymore, yet he claims he has a condo somewhere in Burbank. I doubt it. But here's the other problem with Swalwell. He's a liar. We know this. And this should be investigated. If it is true, he should be kicked out of Congress and, of course, the California race. But yesterday he was on with ICE Director Todd Lyons. This crashed and burned for him, wound up in the crap house, as usual. And listen to this buffoon. He has the nerve. He has the gall to say the following to Todd Lyons. Take a listen to this. Listen to how he foments a lie, a talking point by the left, the media, to try to smear Todd Lyons. Take a listen to this.
Mr. Lyons, your staying to lead ICE is a decision.
Sir, I'm sorry.
Your staying on to lead ICE is a decision. And I've read your background. You have a decorated career. You've served in the military. You are what I would call otherwise employable. I think most people would agree this is not the only job that you can get. But since you've been on this job, women have been dragged by their hair through our streets. A 6-year-old child battling stage 4 cancer has been deported, and it turns out he was a U.S. citizen. People are running through the fields where they work. People who've gone to the streets as allies have been shot and publicly executed. It's a decision to stay on at this point. And considering your honorable service in the past and the dishonorable acts that those who have worked for you have conducted, and the disgraceful statements that the leadership above you have said, you now have a decision. Will you stand with the kids who you're supposed to protect, or will you side with the killers bringing terror to our streets? Mr. Lyons, will you resign from ICE?
No, sir, I won't.
Why not?
Because, sir, that child that you're showing right there, the men and women of ICE took care of him when his father abandoned him and ran from law enforcement.
Time has expired.
You never should have gone into
Gentleman's time has expired. I recognize the gentleman from Mississippi.
So he never should have been arrested. No, he should have been given a medal for coming in the country illegally. What man actually abandons his child and runs away, leaving him there by himself? No man at all, folks. I'll tell you that much. How does this jerk Eric Swalwell, who repeats MS nobody cares lies and thinks he's brilliant, is beyond me, by the way. He's now estimated to be polling, by the way, second, folks, in the California gubernatorial race, roughly 17-18% right now. Scary times ahead, folks, if this clown should actually get through this fraud that he's alleged with. Gets the keys to yet another mansion, this time in Sacramento, California. He will be the finisher of California, folks, by the way. The bridge to Beijing will grow under Swalwell. He will try to go after members of ICE, as he said already, that are from California. The cost of living will skyrocket. Taxes will rise, and every left-wing policy under the sun will expand under this zero Eric Swalwell. The disgrace that he represents in California is to no end. Using the picture of a 5-year-old Liam Ramos in the background as a prop, suggesting that they went out and just simply arrested a 5-year-old to amplify a hoax to the director of ICE is in and of itself ridiculous. It's beyond me how this guy gets away with this. It's very, very troubling, folks, as you could imagine. But this has got to stop. These lies about what ICE is doing. Again, we can question ICE all day. I have no problem with that. Certain actions or what have you. But the idea that he says, are you going to stand with the killers? Is he really asserting that every single man and woman that works for ICE is a murderer? This man works for the federal government. The idea that Swalwell would accost an entire group of people as being killers, again, is sick and violent. Again, it foments lies. People hear these lies and they act on those lies. Why do you think we have people in the streets acting like this in Minnesota right now? Because people like Eric Swalwell get behind the mic and they say, these people are killers, these people are, fomenting this hatred. These people shouldn't be arrested in the first place. You're abducting people off the American streets. I mean, this is the rhetoric coming out of Eric Swalwell. Not too bright, not too smart. And again, it's very, very troubling, folks, to hear these things and see these things play out right now. This shouldn't be happening in America. There should be a consensus that, yes, we need to follow federal immigration laws. They should be followed constitutionally. But we should not have illegal aliens in such a manner that are acting like this, and we should be backing the people of ICE properly, detaining people, properly deporting them after due process. That's what should be said. Shouldn't be these lies that ICE is targeting children, folks. Because I can assure you that that's not what's taking place right now in this country. And again, going after people that shouldn't be arrested. First of all, of all the people they've arrested, only about 170 of them have actually been American citizens. So this idea that they're arresting American citizens, they're just going out and killing American citizens, again, is really foolish. Although I will say due process needs to be held. I will stand by that statement. And I will grant the Democrats everything they wanted, as long as they tack on other addendums too. That anyone doxing an ICE agent that's not wearing a mask will go to jail promptly. Anyone causing violence to ICE agents will go to jail promptly. And of course, you'll pass the SAVE Act too, to ensure that we have election integrity in our upcoming elections. Let's see if the Democrats will go through with that. Let's see what Chucky Schumer does as a result of that. My guess is absolutely nothing. Speaking of California, we got a judge blocking the California mask ban for federal agents. I'm sure Eric Swalwell was crying as a result of that. So was probably Gavin Newsom, I'm sure. But a federal judge has now blocked California from enforcing a new law that would ban the federal immigration agents and other law enforcement officers from wearing face coverings. Now, this has been a big talking point for the left, that these are masked thugs. They're going out. They are simply going into homes. People don't know who they are because they're, again, have face coverings on. Why are they wearing the face coverings? That's what you have to ask yourself. Why would they wear a face covering? Doesn't make any sense, right? Well, except it does make sense. You've got a 1,300% uptick in violence against ICE agents. You got people claiming to want to dox them. You saw this in Minneapolis. I saw a sign, dox ICE. Now, why are they trying to dox ICE? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Well, because it'll prevent them from wanting to participate in this job. The less participation, the less boots on the ground, the less people that are detained, the more illegal aliens that stay in the country. This is the left's wet dream. This is what they want. They want to take down ICE. And they know if they can do this, if they can threaten them in such a way, that they'll have less of a turnout. They'll have less recruitment. This is why you're seeing this. Nobody wants to be doxxed. Nobody wants people showing up at their house. These lunatics on the left, threatening them or their family members, knowing where they live, that can harm them. That's just the truth of the matter. So I'm fine with, obviously, removing the mask so long as anybody that does that is going to go to jail as a result of it. And not for like some small stint. They're going to go to jail for a long time if they threaten a federal officer. If they go to their property, if they go to their house, if they threaten them or cause violence to them or their family members, they're going to jail for a long time. If they're putting their information on the internet, they're going to go to jail for a long time. That's what should be done. Now, in the February 9th ruling, a U.S. District Judge, Christina Snyder, preliminarily struck down the law and upheld another California law that requires federal officers to display their identification while performing their official duties. So, I have no problem with that. They should be identified, and many of them do carry the IDs with them. They should show an ID when entering a home. They should have a warrant when they do that. I'm not opposed to any of that. I want everything to be constitutional. But what Gavin Newsom was trying to do was completely unconstitutional. He cannot put forth any type of law to federal agents. That's obviously out of sight of his purview, which is what he's trying to do here. Can you imagine that? Trying to run as president, he has no idea what the hell the law is. He has no say what the federal government does. None whatsoever, by the way. And that's why all these things are completely ridiculous. Now, the Trump administration hailed this as a major win, with Attorney General Pam Bondi as a key court victory for, obviously, ICE agents. Now, they've argued that the DOJ, inside the lawsuit, says that immigration agents face a real threat of criminal liability from state officials who have made it clear that their intent is to target federal officers and disrupt federal law enforcement activities, including federal immigration enforcement. 100%, by the way. For once, I agree with Pam Bondi on this. Her blunder today on Capitol Hill of course, with the Democrats I thought was fairly disgraceful. They're asking her questions about Epstein, of course, and she's trying to make ad hominem attacks to them, which, again, I'm not siding with the Democrats. But answer the question. If the truth is on your side, Pam, answer the question. Don't give Raskin or Nadler any, gotcha moments. Answer the question. Prove them wrong if you're right. These are questions everyone wants to have answer to, Democrat, Republican alike, which is why it passed overwhelmingly to release these Epstein files in Congress. We saw overwhelmingly on both sides. They came out and said, listen, we want this to be transparent. We want to have this information. We want people to be held accountable. We want guilty people to go to jail. But nobody wants federal agents doxxed, harassed, obstructed. That's a violation of 18 U.S.C. Code 111, if I'm not mistaken. And there shouldn't be any tolerance. And Pam Bonnie's right in that statement. But the way she was acting today was obviously on the defensive. She was deflecting. And it's pretty unbecoming of our leading law enforcement officer. I will say that to you. So good win in California. Gavin Newsom, another L for you, of course. Not that I would expect you to follow the law. Yep, there you go. California, California, California. All right, one last article, folks. We have a few minutes remaining in the broadcast. Let's talk about this article I have in the Daily Mail. It's a little health article I found for you yesterday. It says, experts issue fresh warning against drinking raw milk after latest death in the United States. What is all this about? Now, health officials are pressed in this release, saying that they believe that the source of the infection that pursued from the baby's mother was drinking raw milk, and that obviously raw milk is unpasteurized. That means it goes through a heating process. And as a result, the bacteria entered through the mother's breast milk, entered the baby, and of course the baby got sick and has since passed, sadly enough. Now, the investigators say they can't pinpoint the exact cause, but they will attribute it to something like raw milk. So the tragic death obviously underscores the serious risks, it says here, that raw dairy poses to pregnant women, young children, elderly people, of course, and obviously this is a slam on unpasteurized milk. Now, what they say here is that the pasteurization process, which is standard in U.S. milk production, involves heating the milk to at least 145 degrees for 30 minutes to kill pathogens, like Listeria, E. coli, others, of course, but that raw milk skips this process. Now, here's the problem. They should go and check and see what type of raw milk she was drinking. For example, if you're in the state of California, if you're drinking Raw Farms raw milk, all that is tested right there on site. It's tested for everything before it's even put into distribution. All raw milk is in the United States, by and large. Now, if you're on a farm, for example, and you go, hey, I'm going to just drink this right here straight out of the cow, obviously you're opening yourself up for the opportunity that you can be consuming some of these types of bacteria. Obviously, you don't want to do that. So you need to be smart when you're drinking raw milk. Obviously, the milk, the butter, the cheese should be tested. And if it is tested, you're going to be getting a high level of nutrients. Now, the argument is that pasteurization kills 99% of all the pathogens. That's probably true. But what you're seeing as a result of that pasteurization is you're destroying also all the nutrients, too. All the right vitamins, all the right fat, all this stuff is getting killed in this heating process. So really, milk doesn't pose any type of real health benefit to you if it's pasteurized. That's what it comes down to. Now, it's important to note, too, and they say it here in the article, from 1998 to 2018, a 20-year span, the CDC reported that there was 3 deaths in that 20-year span to raw milk. During that same exact time period, there were 202 outbreaks linked, not proven, but linked to raw milk. And, of course, that caused 2,645 illnesses and 228 hospitalizations. So you got to ask yourself the question, Is drinking milk even a health benefit if you're going to take out all the raw nutrients from it? All the probiotics, all the vitamins, all the things that you need to be healthy? Well, of course not. That's obviously not happening as a result of this. So we got to ask ourselves, is this beneficial to us? Is this something we should be doing? Obviously not, folks. Obviously not. Again, I drink raw milk. That's all I drink. I make sure, though, when I buy it, that it's obviously from a company that tests the milk before it's put into distribution. That's what you need to do. That's how you check yourself and you remain safe. And again, you're going to get all the right proper nutrients you should be getting from milk that you're not during the pasteurization process. So I just wanted to share that with you, folks. I thought that was pretty interesting, as you can imagine. We got to take things that are helpful to us, that are beneficial to our health overall. This ultra-processed milk, you don't even have to cool it. That's how much everything inside of it's been killed. Folks, thanks again for being here. I appreciate you so much. Hope you learned something. Share the show with others. Keep your minds and bodies sharp. I'll see you back here for more groundbreaking news on the next Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good. Stay busy. God bless.